Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Tribe Podcast. Today we're going to do an episode about your soul and its path and you being aligned to that path and you listening to what your soul really needs and what you really need. And we thought it was a really important time to talk about that since we have previously said a lot about taking action. And for you to be able to take action, you need to know what that action is. Like, what is it that your soul's looking for you to do? And also, you need to make sure, and I think this goes for a lot of us, that other people's opinions of the action you're about to take isn't one that's going to affect, their opinion's not going to affect you making that decision. And I have quite a few examples in my head about my life in general and how that's happened to me and how I've managed to kind of, even though it was really hard, listen to myself and do that thing that I knew, make that move or take that action that I knew that I had to, without letting other people's opinion of it. Well, I was about to say affect me, but it did affect me because it really, there are moments where I remember feeling upset because you don't feel supported. You feel judged, right? Yeah. And so that's difficult. But I think that takes strength. It takes a lot of strength and inner reassurance, really being confident in yourself and saying, I know this is something I have to do. And sometimes you can even say, I don't know why I got to do it, but I just know that I got to do it, you know?
Yeah, or no, like, this is my path and this is what I have to do and I have to honor that regardless of what everybody and everything around me is saying. Because that's the thing right now. I think a lot of us are going through that. We're feeling that. And like you're saying, especially this year, the action we need to take has to be inspired. It has to be aligned. It has to be something we're feeling. It has to be with intention. And if we're not doing it for the right reasons or not understanding our why, then we're just going to do things because we're just doing them. And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're really aligning with ourselves, really following our most aligned soul path. And everybody's so different. And this is where we go kind of into the Akashic Records, right? It's like each of us are here with different lessons, unique things that we need to learn, unique soul contracts, unique situations we're going to live, unique purposes and missions. So why would we ever compare ourselves to anybody else or what they're doing or their decisions? That's just like craziness if we really think about it from a soul perspective, right?
Yeah. And I think not expecting things to have a full-blown reason. Because as humans, I think that we go, oh, well, okay, so maybe if I do this, it's because it's going to give me this in life and that's going to, be, it's successful for me. And I think sometimes souls have a plan just because it needs to close out a cycle. For example, The soul was very attached to an area in the world, let's say, for example, but it never managed to close the cycle there. And the soul said, actually, in this lifetime, I'm going to see if I can pop myself over there, live that experience that was pending, close that cycle, and just, head out after I'm done, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to have this full story evolve from an action. Sometimes it's this little thing that it brings, that it closes a cycle for the soul that you might not be fully conscious of. It felt right and you knew you had to be there and you did it. And now you're moving on to the next thing that you feel like you need to do. So I think that we're really hard on ourselves when maybe we did take an action and it didn't take us down the path that we were expecting it was going to. Sometimes it was supposed to get to a certain point and that cycle was supposed to close.
Yeah, it doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just know we have to do something. And that's where the intuition part comes in and us being connected to our higher self. Because if we're not in that energy and we're not inviting that energy in and we're not cultivating that, then it's going to be hard to make decisions from a soul perspective. We're always going to be making them with our head, our ego, with comparison, with fear. It's if I don't do this, then this might happen. Or because I'm expecting somebody to, like, for example, if I do something, I want them to accept me, or I want them to love me more. So that's all wounding too, right? So it can get really tricky in that sense if we're not listening to our intuition. All that ego, all that wounding, all that shadow comes in, and we may not be doing things for the reasons that are aligned at a within the soul perspective, but also within what we need to learn. So then we might see ourselves in this loop. We're going to repeat things. Things are going to keep happening. And we're going to be really frustrated because we're not learning what we need to. And the more we can align with that, and I think right now, whatever's going on in the world, and there's a lot of divide, a lot of separation, a lot of comparison, a lot of putting things into labels and boxes,
right?
A lot of finger pointing. And we need to just realize that we can't tell other people what to do. We can't tell them what's right for them. Each person needs to know what's right for themselves. We can't force that upon anybody. That's breaking their free will. And that's also, how do we know that's aligned with their soul contract?
We don't.
Exactly.
The only person that will know is the person that feels it. And we can't feel what they feel, obviously.
Yeah, it's never like a one-size-fits-all approach for anything, especially not the soul. The soul is so unique. It's
it's
so many
unique.
past lives, so many experiences. There's karmic lessons. There's karmic lessons that are pending. There's soul contracts, not only with yourself, but with other souls. So all of that comes into play when we incarnate, and there's things that activate.
So many different kinds of souls that have done so many different kinds of things, or, gone to so many different places. I've never met a soul that's like, oh, that reminds me of the soul that I met 2 years ago that I did a reading for. Like, I don't think I ever felt that with every soul is completely like, I never know what kind of person I have in front of me when I go to read somebody. And sometimes I'll have amazing soul stories where I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I didn't even know that was like a thing, or, that souls could have that experience, for example. So yeah, souls are so unique, and you never know what they have in their contract. You never know what they have as their plan and why they're here. And yeah, what seems so wrong for one person might be so right for another person.
Exactly. I think we can, and that's why we should never push ideas or things on to others, right? That could be belief systems, that can be, I don't know, even work or relationship. Like, we can't force things on people. Like you said, every soul is so different. We're all here to experience things and even just, if we take for example, relationships or friendships, we're all here to experience different kinds of relationships, different dynamics, different people, different backgrounds, different cultures. There's no coincidences even when we think about where we live or where we're going or where we are physically, because that also has something to do with the lessons we need to learn. It all comes together. I guess in hindsight, a lot of that could make sense for many of us, but that's why we don't compare or try to do what other people are doing, because then we're not honoring ourselves. We're going against what our soul is here to do.
I think a lot about how when you're in the middle of your own lesson, it's so hard to see outside of it. It's so hard to see outside of that lesson.
Yeah.
And then if someone from outside is looking at it, they can see so clear what you're struggling with. And for some people, the solution, they can see it right there. Like, why isn't that person, why aren't they just deciding to do it this way? And it solves the whole thing. And that's just, that person's in the middle of a lesson. And if it's something the soul's already repeated before and it's repeating it now, it makes the soul even more stuck in that place. It's even harder to go over that issue or that lesson or whatever it is that the person's going through. And you know what it reminds me of a little bit about? I think about like those abusive relationships that you have with like a partnership. There might be one that's abusing another, whether it be verbally, for example, or physically. And you always think, why isn't the person just leaving? Why don't they just leave? And you're like, it's just easy. All they need to do is pack their bags and leave. And I mean, I've seen this in not in our like my friends or family, but I've seen it from like secondary contacts of people that I know. And I've seen it like, why doesn't the person just go and leave? They just keep coming back and being abused.
That's just
right?
a rational way of seeing it.
Yeah, but the person stuck in that cycle, and breaking that cycle sometimes can be really hard. And that's one of their major lessons. Maybe they came here to learn to stand up for themselves, and that's been a hard thing for the soul to manage to do, for example.
Amen.
So maybe even though to you it looks like that person shouldn't be going through that, that's awful, that scenario shouldn't be lived at all. And maybe the soul actually wanted to go through that because at one point the person's going to put their foot down and say, no, no more. And that's it. They will not be stomped on in any other lifetime. They've learned that lesson, right? So we don't know what the person that we're looking at from afar, what it is they're learning in the moment that they're going through that.
Or what did their soul go through before that and other incarnations to be put in that situation today, because there's a lesson in it for them. It's so complex. And we've talked about this in other episodes, how when we go into free will and all of these things and soul contracts, it can get really hard unless we have like specific, obviously, situations that we can say, well, because of this past life, this happened, and now you're here to learn this, and this is how you kind of move out of that and how you learn that lesson and move forward in a more aligned way. But sometimes there's so many heavy karmic things tied to certain situations and things that we need to learn. It can feel so difficult. And for another person, they might be going through, if we look at it from the outside, something similar, and they might have even had similar upbringings, but it doesn't feel as hard. It doesn't look as hard. But they're carrying way less karmic pending lessons with them. So that also has some kind of effect on what we're living and how we're living it, which isn't small. It can be really, really heavy and big and can feel really, really hard.
Yeah. And especially if the soul's repeating that lesson, it can feel so impossible.
Yeah. So hard. You can feel it so heavy. Like when you open somebody's records, it feels so heavy.
And the more the soul has to repeat it, it gets worse.
So heavy. And like you can feel for them. Like at least that's me, because I feel things, but I can feel what that means to them and why they can't get out of it.
It depends on the person. It depends on the issue that they're talking about. But for me, sometimes it can show up when I'm doing the reading for the individual. Sometimes it can show up like I feel like I need to it's like Hulk. I feel like I need to break the skin and go, wah, and like liberate myself. Like the soul feels like an essence of liberation once it finishes that lesson or gets through that part of whatever they're learning. So if it's something repetitive where the soul did it more than one lifetime, it really feels like that Hulk thing for me. It's like the soul's dying to get out of it and just go on to the next step, which is going to be something that the soul's usually very excited about. So I find, so this isn't a rule of thumb, but it's like a common thing that I've noticed, is that behind every really difficult decision or struggle, once the soul surpasses or jumps over that, it's almost like a reward system in a way, or a release in a way, where it's like it lives in its true essence. The soul in the incarnation it's at, it seems to live in its true essence for that moment because nothing else is tapping in. It just did that for itself. The soul managed to do that for itself, and the person starts bringing in a lot of great things to help them along the path of what comes after that. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of us will associate with worthiness. Like, oh, I put my worth, and so now the universe is giving me my worth. Yeah, it is that sometimes, but at the same time, sometimes it's that you just closed a really important soul cycle, and now you're totally aligned with the universe for a lot of other things to come in now. So it's almost like you're being bombarded with a lot of goodness.
Yeah.
And you feel like on the peak of like an amazing moment in your life kind of thing.
Things just start flowing so easy, and it feels like effortless. But like you said, that's unique to that person and what they went through and how deep that was for them. But I think if we kind of look at this, we were talking about being in the situation and feeling like we can't get out. Many of us could be in situations, repetitive situations, things that are happening that just you feel like you can't get out of that like loop, or you can't get out of that scenario or that thing repeating. And that could be in jobs, relationships, friendships. That could be in anything, really. And what I always keep being told by kind of the spiritual team, and when I open other people's records too, it's take a step back. The same way it's easy for somebody else to see because they're outside of the situation, the best thing that you can do is, well, obviously it helps if you get a reading or some kind of outside guidance, which we don't always have that like access to that, right? Or we want that. Maybe we don't feel we need that. But I think sometimes going within ourselves, connecting to our higher self and connecting to that energy from our higher self, sometimes we can get that perspective. We can understand it. And obviously if we connect to our Akashic records and ask, but to me, the vision I'm shown is kind of elevating to that higher self perspective and being able to see the situation from there. I feel like I can't talk to it. I keep like slurring my words. It's like looking at it from up there, from that different perspective, and then being able to make the decisions and do the things from looking at it from the outside, not from the inside. Because the problem there is when we're in the situations, we're emotionally feeling them, we're connected to them, we can't see clearly. We're feeling and our ego's involved. And then that's when things can go awry.
Yeah, what you're talking about, the easiest way to explain it is saying zoom out.
Zoom out, exactly.
Yeah, see it from above and not inside. That's really hard to do.
That is very hard.
I usually find when I manage to zoom out, what I was feeling that I really needed to do was the right thing. And everything else that came with the other possible path is usually more mental or external circumstances or external opinions or, right? And that's where you get caught up. But if something feels super strongly, like you cannot avoid knowing that it's there, that's usually the soul's indication that that's the route it needs to go.
You have to pay attention to that. You have to look at that.
I feel like I'm talking to myself right now.
Oh, yeah. It's true, though.
I'm currently going through decisions, guys, and I'm like seesawing back and forth. Yeah. And I know what I feel.
Welcome to my world.
I'm not used to having your world, Lorena. I don't like your world. Bring me back to my world where I know exactly what to do, when to do it, and I question nothing.
The good thing about you, though, is when you do make decisions, they're not necessarily to please other people, right? It's more about you and what you feel. And sometimes
that's the problem, because no one's ever happy with my decisions.
But you still do what you feel like you have to do. Or for me, it's hard to make decisions because I'm thinking about people external to me and pleasing them and making sure people are happy. And that's not a good place to be when we're talking about your soul path, being guided and being aligned with your soul path. That can't be, we're not talking about hurting people or doing things that are against them. It's ultimately you need to decide for yourself what you're going to do. What's right for you and your path.
It can be heartbreaking. I say that because I went through that. And my best example, which I've talked about before, so I hope I don't bore people that already know the story, but it's when I decided to leave Cayman Islands. Yeah. And I got letters from family. I even got you telling me not to go and it was the wrong thing to do. I got everyone. There was only one person in my life that said, you know exactly what you need to do, you do it. Only one person. Everyone else was constantly letting me know, almost on a daily basis, how bad of a decision I was making. And I've even gotten a few indications of people saying things like, you're making a bad decision for your daughter, you're not being a good mother. And I would cry. I think out of everything that was ever said to me, that part of someone saying to me that I was being a really bad mother and I was ruining Aurora's life, that's the part when I would emotionally break down. Yeah. And yet I still knew that I had to do it. Yep. That was so hard. And I remember even the day I left the airport, knowing that everyone was not happy that day with me.
But not so much happy, they were worried. So those, you know what I mean? Like if I look at how I felt, I was worried. I was so worried. I remember even I was so stressed out with you leaving. I was like, what the heck's going to happen? The uncertainty of it all, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, I got vertigo. I was like freaking out. I was here by myself at the house. I got vertigo. I was like, oh my God. And I get vertigo and I'm stressed or really on edge. And I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, I hope everything turns out okay. And I think that was a huge learning lesson for me too, within knowing that I have to trust that you know what you're doing. Because I think there's a part of me that's always trying to I don't know, make sure you're okay and protect you in some way, maybe. I don't know. And just worried. I worry. I'm a worrier, you know what I mean? And I think I've learned, it was a huge lesson for me to allow people to trust that they can decide for themselves. Like, I don't know best. I can't let my ego get in the way. It's your life. You need to know what you need to do. And I think that's been really good for our relationship, but also to trust myself too. Like, because you can do that, why can't I do that?
Yeah, you totally can do that.
Exactly.
Of course you can. I think that you need to learn to have more faith in your intuitive hits, like what we're talking about, that feeling. I think you have more faith
slowly.
that even if everything, because you're a list maker. So list makers, I think, expect for the list, check off everything on the list, and then once everything's checked, okay, now it's time to take that action, right? Whereas I'm the person that goes, I ain't got half of them, and I have no way of getting them, but I know if I go and do it, those things will get checked off. Like I'm the other one.
No, I have more faith now. Definitely, that's something I've worked on in the last year or so. I think with everything that's gone on, of being like, what is it I desire? What's right for me? You know, I'm doing a lot of internal work now, figuring out how I can be in sync and aligned with myself. Like, what does that mean? And how can I listen to myself more and more every day and know what's right for me? And that could be little decisions you make, or it could be huge decisions you make. That depends on what you're going through and the time of, like, the period you're going through in your life at that moment. It can be, it doesn't matter if it's small or big, as long as you're aligning with yourself. And that goes into, like you were just saying, intuition. How can you listen to yourself more? What does that mean? Does that mean quieting your mind so you can listen? Because if we're always listening to the outside voices and looking for approval and waiting for somebody to say something or getting external validation, then we're never going to listen to ourselves ever. It's going to be
the
way
one thing
too hard.
I did learn from that experience was, because you said like sharing it and looking for approval, I learned to tell my plans later, so that I have to live a shorter amount of time of that chaos that I had for how many months in Cayman. Like, I know now that when I have a big change coming, first I think about it, I feel it, I look into it. The first person I'll tell is usually, well, in this case, my partner at the time, the person that lives with me. Then I would share it with you, and then I wait for a while again before I share it with more people outside. Because that's what I learned. Like, and that grandma always taught us that. Don't share your plans. People's opinions of it and perspective of it will pop the plan, the plans that will pop that bubble.
Very true.
And I used to get mad at her.
You have to know who to tell.
Yeah.
And you also want to tell people that'll be real with you. Like, to help you see every aspect of it. So even I've been like that with you in this process. I'm like asking you, like, make sure like these things are aligned. Like, ask yourself these questions and just follow whatever you feel is right for you.
Yeah. It's so it would be so nice for everybody to be able to just fast forward and see how the outcome was and go, okay, that was a good decision. Let me go back and do it. Okay, that was really bad. I shouldn't have done that. Let me go back.
But ultimately, I think sometimes our intuition can guide us in a way that it's guiding us into learning a lesson. So like we even say in the Akashic Records, like if someone's like, is this person my person? Or am I going to end up marrying this person? What's going to happen? And sometimes I'll tell you, yeah, you need to be with this person, but maybe not for the reasons that we think we need to be with that person or go through that situation.
Yeah. And then you'll find out that the person like was really mean to you or cheated on you or did this and really hurt your feelings and ended badly. And you got stronger from that, or you learned something from it, or that helped you find the next person that you said, well, I don't want someone like that. Now I know exactly how I want somebody to be that's sharing life with me, right? So it could be that as well. I have to say that the end of my marriage, when I was in it, it felt like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. The whole thing. I was devastated. Yet today I look back and I go, oh my God, I'm so glad that happened.
Yeah.
I got so much from it. And I know it sounds so cliche to say that because it does. But it did. It made me really like respect myself, put my foot down, but also like, I don't know. It made me, I value my strength. Like I learned to, where I used to think that I was just a person that always messed up and did things wrong. I went from kind of having that perspective of myself to then realizing that, holy moly, like, do I have some strength? Like, how many women are able to do what I did and still be like, I got this, I can do this, it's fine, I'll figure it out, I don't know how the universe is going to take care of me. Like, the amount of faith that I had, I cannot believe it. Like, sometimes I look back and I go, wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. And I don't like that saying, so you're never dealt something that you can't like get through, or you're not given situations that you can't survive. Like, I totally believe that. I don't think we're ever given things that we can't deal with. Sometimes we might need to just do them in a different way. Like I said, like instead of deciding with your head or reasoning the reasons why you should do this or that, it's what really feels right for me. Like going back to that intuition, that gut feeling, what you know you need to do, what you're not doing.
I think there's also this whole process after. So let's say that you took that action that we're talking about. You had an intuitive hit, you took that action, and then you still didn't, you closed a cycle that was left behind you, but sometimes the cycle is not fully closed. It's like still needs to be mentally or emotionally digested, right? Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of people, spiritual people or like psychologists talk about, or I don't know if it's psychologists, but like, I don't know, those people that talk about how when you talk too much about the problems you had in the past or the issue you had in the past, you become that problem.
Yeah.
And you put yourself in that victim role and you're continuing to accept it. And I agree with that to a point. Like if 20 years pass and you're still talking about it and you're still sharing it with everyone around you, yeah, that's probably a victim role that you haven't been able to get rid of. But if you just came out of it 3, 4, 5 months ago and you're meeting new people and you're telling them the story that made you become who you are now, I think that sharing with someone, this is what I went through and this is who I am now because of that. And I don't think that's a victim role. So the way you share things and the amount of times that you repeat it, I think those things are important as well. Because if you're repeating it all day long to everyone you can find around you, well, that's victim role, definitely. So we need to be careful with that.
I agree. And I think it depends on how you share it. What intention are you connecting with when you're sharing? Is it to empower somebody? Is it to share something so that they can also feel like they can get out of a situation or feel like they're not alone? Or is it from that victim role? There's a huge difference there. It's very different. So that's where being real with ourselves in whatever situation we're in, like being able to like call ourselves out and say, okay, wait, I'm really trying not to see this. And I'm trying to ignore this thing I'm feeling or this thing that I'm going through, and that's not helping me. So if we can be real, or wow, I keep talking about this, but it's not bothering me, right? Well, actually it is. I still haven't healed this fully, and I need to be real with myself and realize that I do need to look at this, do some more healing with this, and then I can let it go. Otherwise, we're going to always be in that victim role.
I think another type of victim role is you find those people in life, or maybe you're one of them, but you find those people in life where you say, oh, I'm really struggling right now with this, and this in my life. And they've always had it worse at some time. Oh yeah, I remember went through it. Well, way worse than you, I had this. And then you bring up another subject, like, oh, this for me was really hard. Oh, but when I went through that, this, and this. You're like, wow, like it's like they always try to one-up you with like a problem. Yeah. And you're like, why is this a thing? Why are you trying to one-up me with this problem, like negative stuff? So I think that some people also, what do you call it? Like, se relacionan, in Spanish is they associate.
Try to associate.
They associate themselves too much with the struggles that they had in life. It's like a fine line, right?
Yes. Yeah, we aren't our problems. We aren't the situations we're in. Those are just part of our life. Those are just part of who we are. It's not who we are. I think people that are in the victim role, to me, are so connected to what they went through, and it becomes part of their identity.
Yes, that's what I heard someone talk about once. It was someone spiritual or someone like psychological, spiritual type.
It's true, though.
They project that image of themselves to everyone that's willing to see them. And then people I think energetically speaking, if you think about that, just like zoom out of that, right? What is that person doing? Let's say that you're that person. And then now I just met you, Lorena, and you're telling me your pity stories, right? And I'm just meeting you. I'm already hearing all your stuff. my perception of you now is, oh, poor girl, or poor Lorena. Like, wow, that girl went through a lot. I feel really bad for her. And what am I doing now? Because I'm hurting you as well. I don't mean to, but you're telling me all your pity stories, so all your stories are coming towards me. I feel pity for you. My low vibrational pity energy goes to you. You're fed with that, and you'll continue the pity party, right? Like, you'll continue that.
To feel bad for yourself.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're careful with what stories you tell as well, or how you give out your image towards people, because the energy back towards how they see you, energetically speaking, it can affect you.
No, of course it can. I think there's an element of that. Yeah, definitely. And we don't want to be in any of these energies, right? Especially if we're trying to find our path. We don't want to be stuck in an old story or stuck in a situation. We want to be able to shed and let go of all those and really come from this very open, wide, expansive place and saying, okay, where am I going? What decision do I need to make to better align with my soul? That's not comparing myself to anybody. That's not comparing myself to somebody that I was before or something that I went through before, but from the person I am now and the person I'm projecting into the future. So that's not easy, right?
No,
it's
that's
not easy. But
no.
It's possible. We can all strive to work towards that, because I think there's so many things today that are pulling us in so many directions and telling us what's right, what's wrong, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. The labels, there's just so much stimulus. It's overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. And I think, like we were talking about, I don't know if it was in the previous podcast, I think it was on the first one that we did on season 4. We're not on the fence anymore. If we're on the fence, then we have to get off that fence. We need to decide what side we're on and where we're going and what our values are, what we stand for, what we're striving for, who we want to be, and how we're projecting our energy, our intention, all of that. That's so important right now, especially if we're going to be taking so much action this year in 2022.
Yeah. It's crazy. I know a lot of people that are literally about to move, in the process of moving, or thinking about moving. Like, it's insane. Yeah. A lot of readings. There's a lot of readings coming in of people thinking about going here or going there or doing that. Or the record's telling them, how do you feel about this place? Oh, I've been thinking about that place, like, kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of that going on. And I think energies in certain places that used to suit people no longer suit them. And I think there's a lot of energy shifting around, and I think we're all feeling it. Maybe depending on where you are in the world, you feel it a certain way, but I think that we're all feeling that we need to place ourselves possibly in a different direction or a different position, a different area. And what might be right for me, strategically speaking, energetically speaking, in one area might not be right for another person. So just make sure that you're not following like the flock. Make sure you're going to where you really feel like this is a place that I energetically need to align with today. Why? I don't know, but I know I need to do it.
And if you make a mistake, quote unquote mistake, I'm going to use quotations here, that's okay.
Yeah.
You figure that place isn't yours, or that decision you made didn't work. Don't get stuck in that. Align with yourself. Figure out what's the next move then. This didn't work. This isn't what I needed. I wasn't really listening to myself. I was just following the crowd or whatever. So, okay, what's the next step? Don't get stuck in these decisions that might not feel right, or that we might have not made from that right place. That's okay. That can happen, and we're learning, and just learn from that and keep moving. Like, don't stop. Don't allow that to deter you or make you feel bad about yourself or like you failed. Like, we're never failing. Like, even the Akashic Records, like they never talk about failing. Right?
No, I've never heard them say that to anybody.
Ever. It's okay, perfect. This happened. This is why it happened. And this is what you need to learn from it, or what you needed or need to learn from it.
And it's what you need to do to get on the most convenient position for you.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally the perspective. That's how they see everything. We, as humans, come into this incarnation, into this human experience, and we're like, oh my God, failure, mistakes, right, wrong, labels, and we're so input into that system. It's insane. We go crazy. And then we're constantly looking for external validation because these are the rules, these are the laws, this is what you should do. This is, buy a house, go to college, get a job. That doesn't apply anymore. Like all of these things are crumbling in front of our eyes,
yeah, that's
right?
Now I totally understand what the Akashic Records were talking about when they said like they no longer set. I kept doing readings and they no longer sent people to do really long careers unless it was something that had to be under that like. It was the best way to learn it, yes. But I realized that they were derailing people from doing long trainings.
Yeah.
And I do feel that those systems are really crumbling and that we're coming into a new era for Earth and for humans and ways to function. I'm actively every day trying to figure out how or where I can send Aurora to school so she can go to a more spiritually aligned school instead of a traditional school. Because not only do I feel like I wish I had that, because I had a lot of learning problems. I think that would have really helped me actually. But at the same time, I'm realizing that she's not reacting to education like the other kids are, aside from the language barrier issues that she has. But I had those too. I'm realizing that she has a need that I think has to do from her spiritual side, that she's not going to be able to sustain education the way other kids might be able to. She's got something else going on that she doesn't speak too much, so I can't fully grasp it. But as her mom, I'm like, I really need to get her to a school that brings in the lessons from a spiritual perspective. And I think that's going to be something that we're all going to start feeling, those that are parents, we're going to start feeling more and more. But also as adults, I feel like we're all going to start feeling like, yeah, I want to learn that, but I want to learn that from like a more open-minded way, for example. Right?
Yeah, it's the emotional aspect for children is going to be something that's going to be very interesting moving forward in the next couple of years. How are we able to hold them more emotionally? Because I think everything that's happened in the last couple of years is just so damaging. We don't even know the effects this has in the future. Like that's a message I keep getting. And there's science behind that too, which I understand. But from a spiritual perspective, I think it's going to be really interesting, the shifts that are happening with that. And it's, in a way, it is sad, but at the same time, like, why is it happening, right? Like, maybe we need to change the way we're teaching them, the way that we're doing things. And this is just helping break that cycle and start something new for people to wake up, right?
You said something at one point, not now, but like a little while ago, that reminded me. You were like, oh, failure, and sometimes it's not, like, not everything has to go perfectly as well, right? That reminds me a little bit of a conversation that I specifically had at one point with, I think it was with Mom. And I was saying, I think I want to do this. I was talking to her about possibly leaving Holland, right? And I was thinking, I'm thinking about leaving. I'm thinking about doing this and this and that. And she's like, well, just make sure that if you decide that, it's because you're staying there, you're staying there. I said, why? And she said, you're not going to move I said, why not? And she said, you can't go for a place for 1 year. I said, why can't I? Yes, I can. And I said, and I remember going, Mom, why does everything for you have to be forever? You're not even going to be forever. I won't be forever.
No one is forever.
Nothing's forever. So why does my next move have to be forever? Can't it just be till it suits me and my daughter?
Exactly.
And my family? Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I feel it. But I think that a lot of people see Zoom, like, it's the old way of thinking, right? Like, I don't know. I'm a little weird about it as well. I understand, like, I'm too open to it. Maybe I'm a little too open about it.
Yeah, we're different in that sense, but at the same time, that's also structure, right? There's a structure around that. How structured are we, each of us individually, with our own lives, and how can we, if we're too structured, open that up? And if there's not enough structure, how can we bring a little bit of structure in? Because that also is helpful. It depends on where you're at, and I think too much of anything or too little of something also isn't necessarily good because we're not finding balance. We need to find
But the structure is created with a routine.
Yeah, exactly. Like structure could be a routine. Exactly.
So that's what I do with Aurora. Wherever I am, exactly. I create a routine. She knows that this is where she's going to sleep. This is where we're going to eat. For example, this is where we're going to, in the morning, we're going to do this, in the afternoon that, and at night that, right? So you just create a structure, and that's for you, not only for like the rest of your family. I know that's my opinion, but I'm a little too open sometimes, but I'm happy with I'm happy being that way. Like even when I got married, Mom's like, but marriage is forever. I'm like, maybe it's not. If I have to get divorced, I'll end up getting divorced. But right now, I know it's the right thing for me to do, and we both want to do it. So why won't we do it? Yeah. And to be honest with you, yeah, if you look from the outside, it looked like a massive failure. But I actually would do it all over again because it gave me the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't know sometimes why we feel like we need to do something, but there's
I had a lot of things pending
that.
with that person. And I knew that after it finished, I realized the amount of pending things. And now we have an amazing relationship where we're like really good friends and we talk about everything. And it's fine. And I could tell that there's a connection from other lifetimes. So sometimes you're, like I said in the beginning, sometimes it's just because you're closing a cycle. And what we ended up doing together was we closed a cycle together. If I had not married him and gone through that with him, my soul would have had to do that in another lifetime, close that cycle. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's another good example.
But what you're talking as well about, like how you are, well, that's what you're here to experience too. Like you are honoring that. So don't compare yourself to others. Like we've been talking about that. It's like, well, maybe I'm not. Well, it doesn't matter how everybody else is. That's what the way that you're here to experience your life. That's part of your soul's personality and part of how you're supposed to live here. Of course, maybe part of that is finding some kind of structure within that open energy that you have of saying, well, I can change things tomorrow if I want to. For me, I'm the complete opposite. It's give me structure, give me security, and I'm good. And risking for me is a little harder. But I think it also, there's no coincidence that we both are so different. Like we're both learning from each other in that sense too. And being able to like embrace, like I'm embracing more who you are and you're embracing more who I am, and understanding each other and putting ourselves in the other person's place and not trying to push ideas on each other, just helping you to see things in a bigger perspective, a larger perspective, a wider perspective, so that you can make a decision in the most aligned way. I think that's, if we go down to the bottom of all of this, the foundation of all this is, are we listening to ourselves? Are we honoring ourselves? And are we being true to ourselves? Because if we're not, then stuff's going to start to pop up that's going to show us that we're not. And things are going to become difficult. We're going to have huge lessons to keep learning. And we're going to feel like we're always on like this struggle, like the struggle bus.
The universe usually, like, if you're taking too long to finally feel it or understand it or do it, it's like things around you start speaking to you. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't do this anymore. You shouldn't be here anymore. What are you doing? Like, look, things are not working out for you. Things are not lining up. It's like almost like the universe keeps giving you signals to say, just do it. Yeah. Right?
I guess maybe before we close off, I don't know, maybe we want to talk about a few ways that we can be more aligned. Like, how can you align with your purpose and mission, and things that maybe we found useful that could help maybe inspire somebody.
For me, and I've repeated it from like season 1, the pillow talk thing that the Kashmirians once explained to me. And to me, that's the easiest way. When you're at night, like when you're comfy in your bed and maybe you had some bad thoughts from the day, but once that part phases, and you imagine something you would love to do, and you start kind of like, maybe you're in a semi going to sleep phase, and you're just imagine this one thing. You're like, oh, I really want to study this, or I really want to have this job, or I really want to live in a place that's like this, and that, or a relationship like this, or I dream of whatever it is. And then when you wake up and you rethink about it, you're like, that's impossible. Because your ego or your rational mind kicked in the morning after you woke up, and you're like, no, that's impossible. I can do that. I can't get that job. It's impossible to get that job. Everybody wants that job. Or I can't study that. How many years is that to study? So they talk about pillow talk, with that sweet spot when you're thinking about something that makes you feel really good and you just feel like you have to do it. That's usually your intuitive hit or your soul telling you what's most aligned. But the problem is we usually wake up the next day and rethink about that sleepy moment, the pillow talk, and we rationalize our way out of it.
I was actually listening to a podcast the other day saying about how important the thoughts we have in our brain and our head before we go to sleep, how they're so important because they can affect us subconsciously. The same thing when you wake up, the first thing you do in the morning, if it's grab your phone or feel like you're already dreading the day, like maybe the first thing we do in the morning is gratitude. And maybe the best thing we can do when we go to sleep is, like what I do when I go to sleep is I'm like, what would the most aligned version of myself like want in her life. And I just start to dream. Like I actively do that every night. And I go to sleep with like a smile on my face. And it could be just a feeling I connect with, or it could be a vision. It could be something physical. I don't know. It depends. But it's, how does that version of me that's so aligned with herself, how does she feel? And I connect with that feeling every night. And in the morning, I'm working on that still, because in the morning for me, it's easy for me to just like, oh shoot, it's this time. Like I have to get up, and I already get into like go mode. But I have started to do a little bit more like just like put my hands on my heart and think about what I'm grateful for. Just 3 things, even in my head, and do a little bit of journaling. Maybe not every morning, but I'm journaling. Journaling for me has been really helpful if that's like, I guess something I can, kind of share, I guess, like just journaling, like what you're feeling, what's going on, where you feel stuck, and being able to work through those. And also, I think for me, it's been working on my worthiness, or my lack of worthiness, of saying, you know, where do I feel stuck? Why don't I feel enough? And working through that, that's been super helpful for me to start to feel like, I don't know, like I can start to call in those things that I feel like I deserve, like really truly deserve, and that I desire. Connecting with my desires has been really difficult for me, because I get stuck in the unworthiness. And so then I just don't dream. So at night when I lay down and I think of that version of me that feels so aligned and connecting with her, then things can pop in my brain and scenarios can pop up. So that's helped me personally. But to me, the worthiness has been like the foundation of everything, and feeling like I can obtain or attract those things that I desire or want, or I'm just even thinking about or really wanting.
Yeah. I have a new routine. So I still have my old routine, but I added to it. So my old routine is, at night I do the protective bubble around the house, around everybody in the house, right? With Archangel Michael and the angelic realm. So I know that we're all sleeping and protected, our energy and all that stuff. And then I do like a mini meditation. And then I was doing it for a while now, for a very long time. I envision myself in like an eco-friendly kind of environment where my house is like off grid and I live more in nature. And this is something that I think that I know that I really want at some point. There's a ton of things I need to change in my life and get there, obviously. But I envision that as well. And I envision how I think it should look and how I feel and how Aurora's part of that and, you know, all that, right? And now I added to the mix my prayer beads.
That's right.
So then after I do the vision work, I grab my prayer beads, the 108, and every time I touch one of the beads, I repeat my mantra. So I've been doing basically a similar mantra for now, but whenever I feel like I need to change it, I'll change it. But it's basically like saying that I'm taken care of by the universe and protected by the universe. Anything I need and my family needs, you know, is aligned and comes to us, and that we have health, wealth, and abundance. Whatever it is I'm feeling, I repeat, and I repeat the same thing for all 108 beads. And it's funny because it becomes this thing, it stays in my brain, it keeps repeating itself in my brain. No. And by that point, I'm exhausted because it's the end of the night. Everybody in the house is sleeping. I'm still going. So I literally put the beads away, and I think it's like 5 minutes and I'm out. So I end up going to sleep with that still circulating in my brain. So that's a cool thing that you said, now that I know that.
That's really cool. No, I think that's important. Like, I guess just focus on what you do at the last thing you do in the day and the first thing you do when you wake up in the day. Because I think those two are not only set you up in a certain way, but can help you focus your intentions on something more aligned with who you are and kind of like directing the energy, right? Like, how are you directing your energy and how is that moving and how are you connecting with it and the intentions around that, and that'll help you align more with your actions. There's a lot. I mean, these are just some examples, but I'm sure each of you have your own.
Directing your energy. I never thought about saying it that way or thinking about it that way.
Definitely, yeah. We're empowered. Like, we're empowered. We are in control of our lives.
So we were born, and we have to do a whole episode, obviously, about the enslavement system and things like that. I think we were going to do it as well on the Patreon. But we're born into a system that literally puts us in a scenario where it limits us to figure out how actually powerful we are. And it's obviously done on purpose. Not everybody that's implementing it, let's say like a teacher, she doesn't know she's doing it. She's just following a protocol. But there's someone that thought about that whole process from the birth all the way up into like, you got to do this and a mortgage and a study and bank accounts and bills. And all these things are set up for us in a way that it limits us from having enough time to discover, figure out, and learn how to become more powerful.
Yep.
Because I'm saying become more powerful because we're limiting ourselves, not because we're not already, because we're being limited. So we need to become it again in a way.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Well, yeah, we'll do a whole episode on that for sure.
Yes.
We have that in the works. We actually have quite a few interviews coming up, actually.
Yeah.
We're pretty excited. So we'll mention those probably as they come through. We don't want to like jinx anything. Like we said, we don't share things that aren't happening yet.
Well, we have one tomorrow.
That's true. So we
have one booked
mention
tomorrow. Will come out in another week with V.
With
so
V, yeah. V, definitely. We're really excited
I'm
to
so
chat
happy
with
to talk to
her
her again. How long has it been?
It's been a long time.
I don't even know what she's up to. Like, we barely talked to her.
Yeah. I've chatted a bit with her, but not much. So we'll do a nice chat with her. And then obviously Christos and Foster are going to come back on. We've been meaning to have them on for a while now. And yeah, we'll have a few more. So we'll announce those as they come. I don't know if you want to mention anything else, Lou, before we go.
Not that I can think of right now. Just a reminder that Lorena and I both do Akashic Records readings, because I think some people are aware of it, but maybe a lot of new listeners are not aware of it. So we still do Akashic Records readings, and we do it via Zoom or Skype. And so you can have a reading with, if Lorena vibrates with you, you have a Lorena. If you feel more attracted to my energy, you have it with me. Or you can also have a dual reading with Lorena and I. So we're both very different channels, and we channel very different kind of things as well. So even if you're asking the same question to both of us, you're going to get really cool mixes of different kind of information that it adds to itself. It's I don't even know how to explain it because it's so interesting.
I always like to say it's like it makes it more complete.
Yeah,
because you're getting so many perspectives. It's really interesting kind of dynamic that we have together. I love it.
Yeah.
And I always love seeing how you channel too.
You know what's been really weird for me lately? For the past maybe 4 weeks, I think my readings have turned from Akashic Records reading to Akashic Records and Starseed readings or something. Or maybe even more than 3 weeks. But it's like my soul's getting a lot more readings of people that they need to or ready to hear their soul's the path outside of Earth.
Oh, wow.
And I'm starting to get a lot of that information. I've heard so many interesting stories because I'm able to hear it, obviously, because I'm there and I'm doing the reading. And I'm just like, wow, there's this whole universe out there that I have no idea about. And I'm starting to discover it because it's almost like, I want to call them starseed readings, but I mean, we're talking about a lot of Earth things in the reading as well. But there's a lot of really external Earth things, information that are coming in. So I feel like my channel's morphing a little bit because people are needing to know the expansiveness of the soul and understand that you're not just an Earth incarnated being. You're much more than that. It's immense. It's insane.
That's really cool, actually. That's happening. I didn't know that. Okay, so like Lou said, we do readings. Also, I wanted to mention, because we haven't talked about this in a while, actually, before we wrap up. We still have our packages. We have a couple of packages that we put together where you can save and you can try different healing things with us. So it could be dual reading. It could be angelic healing. There's flower essence therapy. So that can be there's different packages. I'll include that link in the show notes. So you save quite a bit on that. And you can get a couple of things. So it could be like a dual reading with angelic healing and flower essence therapy. And we coordinate that with you, and we do some of those in one session, some of those in two, and you get to work with us. So it's really cool. And you get your healing, you get your information, and it can be really dynamic and cool. So if you are interested or want more information on those packages, I'll put that link there and explains each package and what each one includes and the price. So yeah, and level 2 will be coming soonish. I'm not sure. It's taking a long time. Creating courses is not an easy task, guys.
No, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. So yeah, we're slowly getting through that, and we'll announce a date as soon as we have one. I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody was wondering about Akashic Records level 2. Our level 1 obviously is online. I always include those links in the show notes, so you can check it out there. And yeah, so we're going to wrap up now. And if you guys have any questions or any suggestions for podcast episodes, feel free to reach out to us either on Instagram or Facebook, or you can email us at soultribepodcast@gmail.com and just shoot us an email. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about. And we'll be back next week with a new episode. And we hope you guys have a great week, a great day. And we look forward to connecting with you guys soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.